Every hour you work, someone is making more money than you without working at. This isn't conspiracy. It's not jealousy. It's how the system was architected from the beginning. And you're feeding it every single day without realizing it. In part 1 of this series, working hard is keeping you poor. I showed you that working hard isn't the path they led you to believe it is. I showed that effort without direction is just exhaustion called progress. But that part was just the entry point. Because now we need to talk about what's on the other side of that door. We need to talk about the system that's capturing the value of your work and redirecting it to other people while you think you're building something for yourself. This is part 2, and this part is going to hurt a little, but it's going to clear everything up. If you watch until the end, you'll understand exactly why working more will never free you within this system. And more importantly, you'll start seeing that the people who actually win aren't on the other side of effort. They're on the other side of the structure. Let's go. Imagine this like a chess game, but not the kind of chess you're imagining, where two players sit at a table and move pieces with equal opportunity. Imagine a game where one of the players already knows all the other's moves before they happen, where one side was designed from the beginning to win, where the rules aren't just unfavorable, they're invisible to the one who's losing. That's exactly the game you play every day when you go to work. You get up early, you show up, you put in hours, you push yourself, and at the end of the month, the majority of the value you created was captured by structures you were never taught to question. I'm not just talking about your job. I'm talking about the entire model that was built around you. The model that says you should trade time for money, that security comes from a fixed salary, that the responsible way to live is to work more and save what's left over. This model wasn't created for your freedom. It was created to keep the flow of value going in the right direction. And the right direction isn't toward you. Let me show you how this works in the most everyday practice. You work 40 hours a week. In those 40 hours, you generate value for the company where you work. Maybe you generate 2, 3, 5 times more value than you receive back in the form of a salary. The difference between what you generate and what you receive doesn't disappear. Thin air. It turns into profit for whoever owns the system, into growth for whoever has shares, into accumulation for whoever is already on the other side. And you, who created that value with your time and energy, end up with the smallest part of the equation. And you come home thinking it was a good day of work. This isn't something new. This isn't something that will change tomorrow if you work harder. It's how the game was designed decades ago. And the only way out of it isn't to work more within it. It's to understand how it works so you can disconnect from within it and plug into a different model. But here's the part that hurts the most. Most people don't want to see this. Not because they're not capable of understanding. They're smart enough. They don't want to see it, because seeing it means that everything they've done, now all the years of effort, all the sacrifices, all the discipline they've cultivated, they were feeding a system that wasn't created for them. And accepting that is emotionally devastating at first. I know a man who worked 22 years at a big company. He dedicated everything. He arrived early, left late. He didn't take vacation for 3 years straight. He climbed the ranks because he was exceptionally good at what he did. And the week he turned 22 years at the company was sold for $2 billion. He received nothing. Zero. It wasn't in the contract. He had no shares. He had no participation in any of the value he helped build during 2 entire decades of his life. He didn't fail. He wasn't lazy. He didn't lack effort. He simply didn't understand the system within which he was playing until it was late to change the rules. This is what happens when you play without understanding the real rules of the game. Not the rules they told you, the rules that actually work behind the scenes. And this series was created to show you these invisible rules that determine who actually wins in the end. In part 1, I showed that working hard is a trap when it lacks strategic direction. Now I'm showing why the trap exists, who built it, and why you were never taught to question it. And in part 3, the rich don't work more. They use a system you never learned. We're going to show how to get out of this structure and build something that actually works for you. But first, you need to face reality without a filter. Stop everything. Let me ask you a direct question that will reveal exactly where you are in this game. When you work, who gets richer, you or the system around you? Think with real honesty, not what you like to believe. What actually happens with every hour you give. Most people have never done this math. Never. And that's exactly where most people fail permanently. They work harder thinking the exit is more effort. But more effort within a broken system only accelerates the loss. If you forget everything I've said until now, remember this. Working more within the wrong system doesn't free you. It traps you more. Now keep going because what comes next will show exactly how this structure, your value, your relationship with work is probably based on a belief that was never, the belief that time is the most important currency you possess, and that the correct way to convert time into money is through direct exchange. 1 hour of work equals a determined value, and the more hours you put in, the more money comes out. It's a simple, linear, predictable equation. And that's exactly why it keeps you stuck. Because linear equations don't create wealth, they create salaries. And salaries, no matter how large they are, will never create real financial freedom. Because every time you stop working, the money stops coming in. And on the day you get sick, on the day the company decides it doesn't need you anymore, on the day the economy enters a crisis, everything you built with decades of effort can disappear in weeks. This isn't pessimism, it's math. Robert Greene, who spent decades studying how power and influence actually work in society, talks about a concept that's crucial here. The difference between people who are instruments of the system and people who are architects of the system. Instruments are those who deliver value and receive a fraction of it back. Architects are those who create structures that capture value passively over time, without requiring constant presence. Most people spend their entire lives being instruments, not because they're not capable of being architects, but because nobody taught them how to build structures. Nobody showed them the blueprint. And here's the part that's going to shake you. The system doesn't want you to. Understand this. The system wants you to keep being an instrument. The system wants you to keep believing that more effort is the answer. Because every hour you work within it without questioning, it captures more of your value. Think about it. Every time you accept a salary, you're basically saying, I'll create value X, and I'm content to receive a smaller fraction of X back. And the structure, the difference, not necessarily in a malicious way, in a structural way, in a way that was designed to work exactly like this from the beginning. But here's the good news that's going to change how you see your situation. You don't need to be rich to start building structures that work for you. You need to understand how they work. And once you understand, your daily decisions change completely. The way you invest your time changes. The way you think about money changes. And the results follow. Cal Newport, who deeply studied how high-performance people direct attention and energy, makes a point that's absolutely central to this conversation. He says that the ability to focus deeply, deep work, isn't just a skill. It's a resource that can be strategically directed. People who master focus don't just work with more concentration. They work on things that create leverage, that accumulate, that grow independent of them. They're not smarter than you. They simply learn to direct attention toward activities that multiply instead of activities that just maintain. True discipline isn't about forcing more effort into a system that doesn't work. True discipline is having the emotional clarity to stop, question, and redirect. It's having the mental clarity to see that the road you're following doesn't lead where you want to go, and having the courage to change direction even when everyone around you is continuing down the same road. Before we go deeper, I need you to do something now. If what I'm saying is making real sense, if you're starting to see the system for what it really is, like this video, leave a comment telling me what's clicking for you at this moment. And follow the channel because part 3, The Rich Don't Work More. They use a system you never learned, is going to give you the exact blueprint that people who got out of this cycle used to build structures that work for them. Don't miss it. And listen, in the pinned comment below this video, I left a resource with 21 mental activations that personally helped me make the necessary mindset shift to start thinking differently about work and money. Structured to work in 7 days, even when life is in chaos. It's not mandatory in any way. But if you're serious about getting out of the cycle of working more and earning less than you deserve, it's a shortcut that can save you years of trial, and check it out if it resonates. Now let's continue because this next part is where the complete structure reveals itself. Let's talk about financial direction in a way nobody talks about. Because most content about finances teaches you how to manage better within system, how to create a budget, how to save more, how to negotiate a better, and all those things have value. But they don't change the fundamental structure of the problem. They make you a more efficient instrument within a system that still captures the majority of the value you generate. Real financial direction isn't about managing better inside the box. It's about getting out of the box. Think about the difference between an employee and a founder. I'm not talking about intelligence. I'm not talking about natural talent. I'm talking about where they are in the structure of the system. The employee generates value and receives a fraction. The founder generates value and captures the majority of it. Or even better, the founder creates a structure where other people generate value and they The difference? This isn't malicious exploitation. It's how scalable systems. And it's exactly what they taught you was impossible for people like you. Bodo Schäfer, who dedicated his entire life to studying how people achieve real financial independence, talks about this with a clarity that cuts through everything. Most people who are successful by society's standard are actually trapped at a more sophisticated level of the same trap. They earn more, but they also spend proportionally more. They live in bigger houses that require more maintenance. They drive more expensive cars that require more insurance. And in the end, the proportion between what they earn and what they actually accumulate doesn't change as much as it seems. They just scale the illusion of progress. True prosperity doesn't come from earning more within the system. It comes from building something outside of it that works for you while you sleep. Something that generates value without demanding proportional hours of your life. Something that scales without you scaling along with it. This is what financial direction means when you truly understand the complete. It's not a prettier budget. It's not a higher salary. It's the strategic decision to build structures that free you from the time-money equation. It's redirecting a part of your time and energy to create assets that work for you. It's understanding that every dollar you invest in building these structures isn't an expense. It's the only financial decision that truly matters for your. Here's something that's going to change how you think about daily decisions. Every day you spend just working to survive, without dedicating any part of your time to building something of your own. You're choosing to stay trapped for one more day. I'm not saying this to create guilt. I'm saying it because it's the structural truth of the game. It doesn't matter how many hours you work for the system. It doesn't matter how high you climb the corporate ladder. If you're not simultaneously building something outside that system that value independently, you'll remain dependent on it forever. And this series was designed to show you the way out. Part 1 showed the trap. This part is showing the structure of the trap. And Part 3 will show how to build something outside of it, using the same principles that people who actually achieve financial freedom use. In the comments, I want you to share something specific. What's the reason that most prevents you from starting to build something of your own? What's the real obstacle that keeps you just working for the system? It doesn't need to be elaborate. Just write it. I'm going to use what you tell me to make Part 3 even more direct and useful. Because this isn't generic content. It's a real conversation about your situation. Stop again. This is where most people fail definitively. They hear all of this. They completely understand the structure. And then they think, but that's impossible for me. I don't have time. I don't have money. I don't have connections. And you know what's? That exact belief is part of the system. The system doesn't need to physically prevent you from getting out. It just needs you to believe that you can't. Because if you believe it's impossible, you never try. And if you never try, it keeps capturing your value forever. If you forget everything I've said until now, remember this. The biggest barrier isn't external. It's the belief that it can't be done. And that belief was planted in you by the very same system that benefits from you. Staying trapped. Keep going because what comes next will show how to get out. Let's talk about something most people avoid because it seems too big, too scary, too out of reach. Identity. Not the identity you present to the world. The identity you maintain internally about who you are and what's possible for you. Because here's the truth that's going to change everything. You won't build structures that free you if you don't internally believe that you're the type of person who builds structures that free people. This might seem obvious, but it's not. Because most people who work for the system don't see themselves as builders. They see themselves as servers, as executors, as those who deliver value to. And that identity, that way you see yourself in the world, completely determines what you aim for, what you believe is possible, and consequently what you actually want. Emotional clarity starts with seeing this without defending yourself, without excuses, without rationalizations. Ask yourself with total honesty, when you imagine your financial future, what do you see? Do you see unlimited growth, or do you see more of the same with small variations? The answer reveals everything about the identity that's driving your decisions. And here's something that's going to feel uncomfortable but is essential. Your current identity isn't an immutable fact about who you are. It's a construction. It was shaped by experiences, by people, by systems that surround you. And it can be consciously, deliberately reconstructed, one decision at a time. Every time you make a decision that doesn't match the old identity, a decision that points toward who you're becoming instead of who you've always been, you're literally rewriting the internal code that determines what you'll pursue. Next, personal energy follows identity, not the other way around. When you're aligned with a version of yourself that believes it's capable of building something of your own, the energy appears, not magically, but naturally, like water finding its way downhill. When you're misaligned, when you're spending energy on things that don't match who you're becoming, the energy drains. And that constant draining is what most people feel as, it's not a lack of willpower, it's chronic misalignment between identity and action. Self-mastery isn't about controlling everything. It's about knowing the difference between what you can control and what you can't. What you can control is what you do with what you have, how you direct your time outside of mandatory work, what decisions you make with what's left, what identity you decide to cultivate. It's not a small thing. In fact, it's everything that truly matters for your future trajectory. James Clear talks about this in a way that's absolutely central. You don't. Your life by doing big and dramatic things. You change your life by changing the small decisions you make every day. Every morning you decide to use 30 minutes to learn about systems that create passive value instead of 30 minutes scrolling social media. You're voting for a different version of yourself. Every night you decide to save 2% more than you're earning instead of spending everything. You're voting for your future freedom. It doesn't seem like anything in the moment, but compounded over months and years, it completely transforms the trajectory of your life. Purpose comes after you accept that you're capable of more than the system tells you. When you're still stuck in the identity of instrument, purpose seems distant and impossible, like a luxury that's meant for other people. But when you start changing the identity, when you start seeing yourself as someone who builds instead of someone who just works, purpose emerges naturally. It doesn't need to be found somewhere. It emerges when you believe that your actions truly matter for something bigger. Surviving one more month. And here's something that's true, and that will seem cruel but isn't. The system won't free you. Nobody external will free you. No government, no economy. No situation will change in a way that suddenly everyone gets equal freedom. Financial liberation is always an individual process. Always a result of decisions that you make. Always a responsibility that you take on or don't take on. And that's not unfair. That's the only way that works. Because real liberation can't be given. It can only be built. And the bricks with which it's built are clarity about who you are, purpose about where you're going, and discipline to keep your actions aligned with both of those things every day. Carol Dweck discovered through decades of research that the most powerful belief a person can have isn't about external talent. It's about the ability to change. People who believe they can grow and adapt massively outperform people who believe they're fixed in what they are, not because they're more talented but because they don't give up when it gets difficult. Because they keep trying even when it doesn't work, the first, second, third. Because their identity isn't tied to current results. It's tied to the process of becoming. Look at this. Right now, while you're watching this video, someone somewhere is building a structure that's going to generate money for that person for the next 10, 20, 30 years, without working anymore, without trading more time, simply because one day, at some point, that person decided to stop being an instrument and started being an architect. And you know what's surprising? That person wasn't smarter than you when they started. They didn't have more money. They didn't have more connections. They just had one different thing, the decision to try. This is where most people fail definitively, not for lack of capability, for lack of decision. And decision doesn't require anything more than a moment of courage. Do you want that moment to be today? Keep going until the end, because part 3 will show you exactly how to start. So we've arrived at the end of part 2. And if you've made it this far, it means something inside you recognize the truth of what we've been talking. It means the hardest part, seeing the system for what it really is, has already happened. And that's huge, because most people never get to this. They prefer the comfortable illusion that more effort will solve everything over facing the uncomfortable reality that the problem isn't the effort. It's the structure within which the effort is being applied. Let me be completely honest with you about something important. This series isn't meant to make you feel guilty. It's not about making you feel like you failed. It's not about depressing you with the reality of the system. It's about giving you clarity, real clarity. The kind of clarity that allows you to make different, powerful decisions starting tomorrow. Not next month, not when you feel more prepared. Starting tomorrow. In part 1, I showed that working hard is a trap when it lacks direction. In this part, I showed that the system around you was designed to capture the value of your. And in part 3, the rich don't work more. They use a system you never learned. We're going to show the complete blueprint. How people who got out of this cycle did it. What structures they built. How they started with everything against them. And how you can start too, not with big dramatic gestures, but with small consistent decisions that accumulate into real change over time. But none of this is going to matter at all if you don't decide now that you want out. If you don't decide that the life you're living, trapped in the cycle of working more and earning proportionally less than you, isn't the life you're going to accept forever. Because the decision is. It's the inflection point. Without it, nothing I teach will change anything. With it, everything changes. If this video awakened something in you, if it made you see something you can no longer pretend you didn't see, write it in the comments. Don't just think about it. Write it. Make it real. Tell me, what's the decision you're ready to own starting today? What's the first step, no matter how small, that you can take tomorrow morning to start building something outside that traps you? It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be real. Because part 3 is coming. And it's going to show you that the path isn't as impossible as the system made you believe. That the people who failed to get out usually didn't fail for lack of. They failed for lack of clarity about how real structures actually work. And that clarity is exactly what part 3 is going to deliver. Until then, stay sharp, stay intentional. And remember, every hour that passes within the system without questioning it, hour you won't get back. The decision to change doesn't need to wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment never comes. The decision creates the moment. I'll see you in part 3.